and things like that. So my game has definitely changed. The mentality and how I play and what
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Deshaun Watson sat down in front of cameras with reporters in the room, microphones live, and said something so honest, so brutally unfiltered, that it should have stopped the entire sports media world cold. He did not say it quietly. He did not whisper it in a private conversation that got leaked. He said it out loud on record in a scheduled press conference, and every single reporter in that room let it pass like it was nothing, like it was just another quote. Like it did not just expose the single most alarming thing happening in the NFL right now. He told them his game has changed. He told them his mentality has shifted. He told them he needs to let his instincts take over, like a man reminding himself of something he used to do naturally, but can no longer fully access on command. And nobody reacted. Nobody followed up. Nobody treated it like the flare gun it was. But here at Gridiron Ground, we do not let the real story get buried under the noise. And today, we are pulling every single layer off what is happening inside the Cleveland Browns organization. Because what is going on inside that building right now is not a quarterback competition. It is a demolition. Drop a single word in the comments right now. Just one word that describes how you feel about the Browns this season. One word. Let us see what this community is thinking before we get into it.
I don't know. I think just going out there and just playing free and let my,
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Here is something most people in the NFL media world have completely missed, and it matters more than almost anything else being discussed about the Cleveland Browns right now. When a quarterback walks into a press conference and tells the assembled media that his instincts are not where they need to be, that is not a throwaway comment. That is not a humble, coachable player managing expectations. That is a man in the middle of something deeply unsettling, putting his internal reality on public display, and doing it without fully realizing how loud the alarm he just triggered actually sounds. Watson's exact words were not vague. They were not coded. He said his game has definitely changed. He said his mentality has shifted. He talked about his injuries in a way that suggested they had fundamentally altered not just his body but his relationship with the game itself. And then he said the thing that should have made every reporter in that room sit up straight. He said he needs to go out there and play free and let his instincts just take over. Now think about that for a second. Letting your instincts take over is what great quarterbacks do automatically. It is not a goal they have to consciously set before a preseason game. It is not something they remind themselves to do in a press conference. It is the baseline. It is the foundation. When Patrick Mahomes drops back, he is not telling himself to let his instincts take over. He is already there. He has been there for years. He lives there. When Watson says he needs to get back to that place, he is telling you the place he used to live no longer feels like home. And that is not a small thing. That is not a minor mechanical issue you fix with extra reps in practice. That is a quarterback who has been through enough physical and psychological disruption that his relationship with the game itself has been fundamentally altered. And the Cleveland Browns, the organization that paid him more than $230 million guaranteed, are acting like none of that is relevant heading into a new season. Here at Gridiron Ground, we are not going to let that slide past without examining every dimension of it. Because this press conference moment is the key that unlocks everything else happening inside that building. Watson was one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the NFL during his time in Houston. The numbers were real. The performances were real. The ability to extend plays, threaten defenses with his legs, and deliver with accuracy down the field was not manufactured. It was genuine. And then came the legal situation, the suspension, the return to football, and the injuries that took him off the field for stretches that would shake any player's confidence and rhythm.
Injuries and things like that, so my game has definitely changed. The mentality and how I play and what
What Watson described in that press conference is what happens when a player has been through that much disruption and has not yet found his footing on the other side. He is not broken, he is not done, but he is searching. And searching quarterbacks who are still trying to locate themselves, who are still working to reconnect with instincts that used to be automatic. Those quarterbacks need one specific thing from the organizations around them. They need support. They need clarity. They need a coaching staff that has one unified message and one coherent plan. What Watson has instead is an offensive coordinator and a head coach who cannot agree publicly on who should be getting first-team practice reps. What he has instead is an organization that is simultaneously telling him he has every opportunity to be the starter while engineering situations behind the scenes that suggest the decision has already been made. What he has is a franchise that paid him everything and is now treating his uncertainty as a tool rather than a crisis to address. And the most alarming part is that Watson himself may not fully understand what is being done around him, while he is busy trying to find his way back to the quarterback he used to be. Gridiron Ground is not going to let that story get lost. Stick with us, because what comes next is where it gets even more complicated. The money is where you have to start if you want to understand the full weight of what the Cleveland Browns are dealing with right now. Because every decision this organization makes, every press conference answer, every practice rep allocation, every internal power struggle between coaches, it all has the same gravitational center. $230 million guaranteed. That number does not just represent a contract. It represents a declaration that cannot be taken back. When the Browns made that deal, they were not just acquiring a quarterback. They were making a statement to the entire league about their ambitions, their confidence, and their belief in one specific player's ability to transform their franchise. That kind of money puts a quarterback beyond the normal rules of NFL roster construction. You cannot simply bench a player you have committed that kind of guaranteed money to without the entire football world asking every question you do not want to answer. Why did you pay him that much if you were not sure? What did your evaluation process miss? Who in the front office signed off on this, and why are they still employed? The guaranteed money creates a trap, and right now, the Cleveland Browns are inside that trap, and every move they make is being shaped by the walls closing in around them. Think about the actual football reality here. Watson has not played a full season since his Houston days. He has been through a suspension that kept him off the field for an entire year. He came back and was immediately dealing with injuries that ended his availability again. In terms of consistent, healthy, high-level quarterback play, the Browns have gotten almost nothing from the investment they made. And yet the contract remains. The guarantees remain. The financial commitment that defines how this organization has to publicly present its situation remains completely intact regardless of what happens on the field. This is the corner the Browns front office painted itself into, and the effect on every single football decision they make is impossible to overstate. When you are carrying that kind of guaranteed money on a player whose availability and performance have both been deeply inconsistent, you do not have the luxury of making pure football decisions anymore. You are making financial decisions. You are making reputational decisions. You are making decisions designed to protect the people who authorized the original commitment from looking like they catastrophically misjudged the situation. And the clearest evidence of that is what happened with Shedeur Sanders in practice. Here is a fifth-round draft pick who came into a camp that was supposed to be Watson's to own and started earning reps and generating genuine buzz. Not manufactured buzz. Not the kind of attention that comes from a team pushing a narrative. The kind that comes from coaches, players, and observers watching someone do things that are hard to ignore. And instead of letting that performance speak for itself, the organization pumped the brakes. Why? Pure football logic says you ride the hot hand. Pure football logic says if a young quarterback is outperforming the starter in practice, you adjust your evaluation accordingly and let the competition play out genuinely. But the Browns cannot afford pure football logic right now. Pure football logic would result in headlines that read, $230 million quarterback beaten out by fifth-round pick in camp. And those headlines would trigger the exact accountability conversation the front office is desperately trying to avoid. So instead of pure football logic, you get organizational logic. You get an offensive coordinator making calls that protect a quarterback's position, not because the quarterback has earned it, but because the contract demands it. You get a head coach publicly contradicting himself on practice rep decisions, because the power structure inside the building.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Has made it impossible for him to simply tell the truth about what is happening. You get a press conference where the starting quarterback admits his game has fundamentally changed and nobody in the room challenges it, because challenging it would make the entire $230 million situation even harder to defend. The money is not just the background of this story. The money is the engine of every single decision being made, and understanding that changes everything about how you read what is coming next. Nobody inside the Cleveland Browns building was supposed to be talking about Shedeur Sanders the way they started talking about Shedeur Sanders. That was not the plan. The plan was Watson walks in, takes the first team reps, shows the league he is back, and the whole complicated situation gets a little easier to manage. Sanders was supposed to be a developmental piece, a fifth-round pick who sits, learns, and stays quiet while the organizational story gets written the way the people in charge need it written. But Sanders did not read that script, and that is where everything started to go sideways for the Browns. What Sanders did in practice was not the quiet, stay-in-your-lane performance you typically get from a fifth-round quarterback learning the speed of the professional game. By the accounts filtering out of Berea, he was sharp. He was processing quickly. He was making throws that generated genuine reactions from coaches and teammates who were supposed to be focused entirely on the Watson situation. He was doing what genuinely talented quarterbacks do when given any kind of opportunity. He was making it impossible to ignore him. And the organization's response to that, the response to a young player doing exactly what you draft players to do, was to suppress it, to dial back the reps, to protect a political structure that Watson's performance in practice was no longer capable of supporting on its own. Think about what that means for Sanders as a human being for a moment. You come into an NFL camp as a fifth-round pick. The expectations on you are minimal. The organizational investment in you is negligible compared to the starter. You have every reason to put your head down and simply survive. Instead, you go out there and you start performing at a level that forces the coaching staff to notice you. And rather than being rewarded for that, rather than seeing your opportunities expand the way they should when a player earns more looks, you watch the organization pull back. You watch the reps disappear. You watch an offensive coordinator make a call that pulls you off the first team unit and sends a message to everyone in that building about where the real priorities sit. That is a genuinely brutal environment to develop in. And the fact that Sanders has continued to compete and perform despite that environment says something significant about his mentality and his talent. But here is the dimension of the Sanders story that does not get discussed enough. His presence in this situation is not just a football story. It is an organizational stress test. Because when a backup quarterback, especially one carrying the cultural significance and media attention that Sanders carries given his father's profile and his own college career, starts outperforming the starter in camp, it creates ripple effects that go well beyond the quarterback room. The offensive linemen notice. The wide receivers notice. The running backs notice. The entire offensive side of the ball starts quietly taking stock of who gives them the best chance to succeed. And when those conversations start happening, when players start forming quiet opinions about the quarterback situation that do not match the official organizational position, you have a locker room fracture developing in slow motion. The Browns are not managing a quarterback competition right now. They are managing a locker room perception problem, and the way they have chosen to manage it, by suppressing Sanders' development and manufacturing reasons to keep Watson at the front of the line, is creating exactly the kind of quiet resentment and confusion that makes offensive units fall apart when the regular season starts and the pressure gets real. Sanders did everything right. He came in and competed and performed and earned attention he was never supposed to earn on the organizational timeline. And the Browns, rather than embracing that as the kind of unexpected asset that changes franchise trajectories, treated it as a threat to be managed. That tells you everything you need to know about where the decision-making in that building currently sits. And the person who made the most aggressive move to manage that threat has a name you need to know before we go any further. Travis Switzer is not a name that was dominating NFL headlines before this situation developed. He is the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, which is typically a background role, a chess piece in the larger organizational picture. Coordinators call plays. They design game plans. They develop players within the system the head coach builds. They generally do not override the head coach's public statements about practice reps and force the head coach to absorb the public embarrassment of a reversal on camera. But that is exactly what happened, according to the reporting that came out of Berea during this camp situation.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Stefanski told reporters Sanders would be working with the first team. That was the head coach's public position, delivered to media as the official organizational stance on where the practice rep situation stood. And then Switzer made a call, and Sanders was no longer with the first team. And Stefanski had to stand in front of the same reporters who heard his original statement and explain a reversal he did not author. Let that picture sit for a moment. The head coach of an NFL franchise contradicting his own previous public statement because his offensive coordinator made a decision that went in a different direction. That is not a normal coaching staff dynamic. That is a power structure where the lines of authority have been scrambled by forces operating above both of them. And when you trace those forces to their source, they lead directly back to the organizational pressure created by the Watson contract and the front office's need to protect their investment narrative. Switzer wanted Watson. According to reporting, Switzer was the driving force behind keeping Watson at the top of the depth chart in terms of first-team practice reps. And the question that follows naturally is, why? What does Switzer gain from being Watson's champion inside that building? The cynical answer, and the one that makes the most organizational sense, is self-preservation. If Watson fails on Switzer's watch in Switzer's system after Switzer gave him every opportunity available, then when the pivot to Sanders comes, Switzer cannot be blamed for not giving Watson a real shot. Switzer has his cover story. He ran Watson through his offense, gave him the first team reps, built the game plan around him, and Watson could not execute it. That insulates Switzer from the accountability that would otherwise attach to a coordinator whose quarterback experiment produced poor results. And on the flip side, if Watson somehow performs well enough to stabilize the situation and keep the team competitive, Switzer is the coordinator who believed in him when others were wavering. Either way, Switzer wins by championing Watson. The only person who loses in that arrangement is Sanders, who gets throttled in his development, and Watson himself, who gets support that is more political than genuine. Now think about what this does to Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski has been in Cleveland long enough to understand the organizational dynamics. He has navigated difficult situations before, but having your public statements about practice reps reversed by your offensive coordinator and then having to explain that reversal to the media without being able to acknowledge that the reversal did not originate with you. That is an almost impossible position to be in. That is a head coach who has been left exposed by the people around him, forced to absorb the optics of an indecisive, contradictory approach to a major roster decision, without the ability to explain the actual dynamic that produced it. The fractured command structure inside the Browns organization is not a minor internal issue that gets resolved in a meeting and forgotten. It is a live problem that every player in that locker room can sense. Because when a coaching staff cannot maintain consistent, unified messaging on something as visible as practice reps for the starting quarterback, the players stop trusting the process. They stop believing the decisions being made above them are based on merit. And when that belief disappears, the foundation of the entire competitive environment starts to crack. And the quarterback at the center of all of it is walking into press conferences, broadcasting the exact kind of uncertainty that a fractured organization produces. The locker room is not just watching, it is absorbing everything. There is a concept in organizational psychology that does not get applied often enough to NFL locker rooms, but it applies perfectly to what is happening inside the Cleveland Browns right now. It is called psychological safety, and it describes the environment where people feel secure enough to take risks, speak honestly, and perform without the
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Constant background noise of political uncertainty undermining their confidence. Teams with high psychological safety perform better. Teams where the internal environment is unstable, where the hierarchy is unclear, where decisions feel arbitrary and politically driven, those teams fragment under pressure. The Cleveland Browns have constructed one of the lowest psychological safety environments in recent NFL memory, and the evidence is not hidden. It is sitting in the audio from Watson's own press conference. When a starting quarterback tells the media he needs to play free and let his instincts take over, he is describing the absence of psychological safety in real time. Playing free is what happens when your environment supports you. Playing free is what happens when you trust the structure around you, when you know the decisions being made above you are honest, when you believe the people in the building have your back in a genuine way and not in a politically calculated way. Watson is not playing free. He is playing through uncertainty. He is playing through the noise of an organizational situation that has never fully stabilized around him since the moment he arrived in Cleveland. And the effect of that on the players around him cannot be overstated. Locker rooms are extraordinarily sensitive environments. Professional athletes are wired to detect uncertainty and instability with remarkable accuracy. They spend their careers in high-stakes competitive environments where reading the room is a survival skill. When the starting quarterback is broadcasting doubt, when the coaching staff is publicly contradicting itself, when a young backup who has been outperforming expectations is visibly being suppressed, the entire locker room absorbs that information and adjusts accordingly. What does adjusting accordingly look like in practice? It looks like offensive linemen who are not entirely sure which quarterback to build their blocking chemistry with. It looks like wide receivers who have developed timing and rapport with Sanders in practice, but are being asked to prioritize that work with Watson for political rather than performance reasons. It looks like a team that is technically practicing and preparing, but doing so with a background hum of doubt and uncertainty that will not disappear when the lights come on and the real games begin. The Cleveland Browns needed this camp to be an environment where Watson could rediscover himself, where the process of reconnecting with his instincts could happen in a stable, supportive structure. That is what would have given him the best possible chance of being the quarterback they need him to be. Instead, the organizational decision-making has created the opposite of that environment. The political maneuvering around the practice reps, the Switzer override, the public contradiction from Stefanski. All of it adds up to an environment that is asking Watson to find his footing on unstable ground. And Watson, to his credit, has not responded to any of this with outward drama. He has not created headlines with locker room conflicts or public criticism of the coaching staff or the organization. He has sat in press conferences and answered questions with a level of honesty that is almost uncomfortable to witness given the context surrounding him. He told reporters the truth about where he is. He is still searching. He is still working. He needs his instincts to come back. That honesty, that willingness to be vulnerable in a public setting, is actually a character indicator worth noting. But it is also evidence of how much the environment around him has not given him what he needs to get back to where he was. Genuinely supported quarterbacks do not walk into press conferences sounding like men who are still trying to find themselves. They walk in sounding like men who know exactly who they are and what they are capable of. Watson does not sound like that right now. And the organization around him is the primary reason why. What comes next reveals just how calculated this entire situation truly is. Every organization that finds itself in an unwinnable situation eventually looks for an exit, a way to reframe the narrative, a sequence of events that lets the people who made the critical decisions walk away from the wreckage with their reputations at least partially intact. In business, it gets called a pivot. In politics, it gets called a course correction. In the NFL, it tends to get called a quarterback competition. And right now, the Cleveland Browns are running the most transparent organizational exit strategy in recent league history, dressed up as a legitimate competition between two quarterbacks. And the national media is largely treating it as exactly what the Browns want it to appear to be. Here is how the exit strategy works. You start Watson in a preseason game. You give him enough opportunity to say, publicly and credibly, that he had every chance to claim the job. You call it a competition. You put the two quarterbacks side by side in practice and in preseason action, and let the process play out in full public view so that whatever decision you eventually make looks like it was driven by the football. And then when Watson struggles, because the evidence from the press conference and from his
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Injury history, and from the lack of organizational support around him, suggests the probability of struggle is real. You make the switch to Sanders, and you frame it as the competition doing exactly what competitions are supposed to do. The front office gets to say they gave Watson every opportunity. The coaching staff gets to say the process was fair and merit-based. The ownership gets to point to the preseason performance as the determining factor, rather than the political and financial pressures that have been shaping every decision since camp opened. And the $230 million mistake gets quietly reframed as a situation that unfortunately did not work out despite the organization's best efforts and good faith process. That is the escape hatch. And the terrifying thing about it is how well constructed it is, and how easily it can be executed if Watson delivers exactly the kind of performance that the conditions around him make most likely. Think about the details of the Bears' preseason game specifically. The reporting indicated Watson would get 1 or 2 series. 1 or 2. That is not a meaningful sample size for evaluating whether a quarterback who has been through what Watson has been through can still perform at a high level. That is a ceremonial appearance. That is the organizational equivalent of letting someone give a speech before a decision that has already been finalized. It creates the optics of process without the substance of genuine evaluation. And if you need any further evidence that this exit strategy has been in motion for longer than the preseason coverage has suggested, go back to the practice rep situation. The decision to pull Sanders from first-team reps was not just about keeping Watson at the top of the depth chart. It was about controlling the pace at which the narrative shifts. If Sanders had been allowed to dominate first-team reps and Watson had remained with the second and third units, the story would have moved too fast. The organizational exit would have looked too abrupt. Too obviously driven by performance reality, rather than the fair and measured process the front office needs it to appear to be. By pulling Sanders back, by slowing the visible acceleration of Sanders' development, the Browns created the space to run the preseason game, generate the Watson footage they need for the narrative, and then make the move to Sanders in a way that feels like a logical conclusion rather than a desperate organizational scramble. It is ruthlessly efficient as a reputational strategy, and it is genuinely brutal for everyone inside that building who has to perform football while the political machinery around them runs its calculations. Watson is not just trying to play well in a preseason game. He is the main character in a story whose ending was written before he stepped onto the practice field, and the only question left now is whether he knows it. This is exactly the moment Gridiron Ground exists for. Stay locked in, because the predictions you need to hear are coming right now. Before we get into where this situation is headed, let me just say something directly to you for a second. If you have made it this far into this breakdown, you are exactly the kind of football mind this channel was built for. Gridiron Ground is not here to repeat the talking points you can get anywhere else. We are here to pull the real story out from under the surface and put it in front of you clearly and without apology. If that is what you want every time you open YouTube and look for NFL content, hit that subscribe button right now and make sure you have notifications on. Because we are not slowing down, and you do not want to miss what is coming. Now for predictions. Clear, direct, and based on everything we have laid out today. First, watch the series count against the Bears. If Watson gets one series and comes off the field, this competition was never real. A legitimate quarterback evaluation does not happen in a single series of a preseason game on the road. It simply does not. One series is a stage prop. It is the organizational minimum necessary to say publicly that Watson had his chance. If that is what Cleveland gives him, then the decision was made before any of us were watching, and the entire preseason framing was exactly the theater it appeared to be from the beginning. Second, Shedeur Sanders is going to start regular season games for the Cleveland Browns this season. The organizational trajectory is pointing directly at that outcome. The performance data from practice is pointing there. The internal coaching staff dynamics, with at least a portion of the staff recognizing what Sanders has shown, are pointing there. The only counterpressure is the financial and reputational weight of the Watson contract. And that weight gets lighter every time Watson gives the organization performance-based justification to move on. The only question is the timing. Week 1, Week 3, or Week 6. Based on the trajectory of this situation, the earlier end of that range feels more likely than the later one. Third, the Browns' ownership and front office are heading toward a genuine accountability moment this season that will be impossible to avoid. Because the combination of a mishandled $230 million contract, a suppressed young quarterback, a fractured coaching staff command structure, and a locker room environment that is absorbing all of it in real time, that combination does not produce a quietly forgettable season. It produces visible dysfunction at exactly the moments when the pressure is highest. And when that dysfunction produces losses, the questions about who made which decisions and why are going to come from every direction simultaneously. The front office built this situation. The front office will own the consequences of it. Fourth, and this is the one that matters most if you care about football beyond the organizational politics, Shedeur Sanders is going to be fine. Not eventually fine. Not in a few years fine. Fine. The talent is real. The mentality he has shown by continuing to perform and compete inside an environment deliberately calibrated to slow his development is the kind of character indicator that translates directly to success at the professional level. You cannot suppress that indefinitely. You cannot keep genuine ability buried under organizational politics forever. The moment Sanders gets a sustained opportunity with the first team in a regular season context, the story of this entire situation is going to look very different. The fifth round label will evaporate. The suppressed development narrative will evaporate. What will remain is the performance, and the performance has been pointing in one direction since camp opened. Now here is where I want to hear from you. Not a long comment, not a paragraph, just a name. Watson or Sanders, that is it. Drop it in the comments right now. One name. Tell me who you think is starting week 1 for the Cleveland Browns. The comments section on the last video showed this community has sharper instincts than half the national media, so let us see it again. Watson or Sanders? Drop it below. Because the conclusion of this story is going to hit harder than anything we have covered so far, and you need to hear all of it. There's a version of this story where Deshaun Watson is simply the cautionary tale, the punchline for a franchise that overpaid, mismanaged, and ultimately had to pivot in embarrassing fashion. The national media will probably write that version eventually. It will be clean and simple and satisfying in a sports narrative kind of way. Overpaid quarterback cannot recapture former glory, team forced to move on, expensive lesson learned. That version of the story is easy to write and easy to consume. But that version leaves out the most important part. What was done to Watson organizationally, not by Cleveland drafting him or signing him or believing in him, but by the environment they built around him after the commitment was made. That part of the story demands honest examination. Watson came to Cleveland carrying more weight than almost any quarterback in recent memory has carried into a new situation. The legal history, the public perception battle, the suspension, the return to football in a body that was not entirely the same body he had in Houston. Any one of those things would test a professional athlete's relationship with their own confidence and instincts. All of them together, compounded by injury disruptions that prevented any kind of rhythmic, sustained return to form, created a situation that required extraordinary organizational support to navigate successfully. The Browns did not provide that. They provided a contract. They provided the money and the public declaration. But the actual day-to-day environment, the coaching staff unity, the clarity of the competitive process, the genuine support for Watson's process of rediscovery, none of that materialized in the way it needed to. And the result is exactly what you saw in that press conference. A man in the middle of his own reckoning, honest enough to describe it publicly, and surrounded by an organization that is treating his vulnerability as a resource to be managed rather than a signal to be responded to. Watson deserves better than being used as a pivot point in someone else's organizational narrative. Whatever your personal feelings about his history, the football reality is that he is a professional athlete trying to come back from significant disruption, and the organization that made the loudest possible financial commitment to him has not delivered the environment that commitment implied. And Sanders deserves better than being suppressed for overachieving. The NFL is supposed to be a meritocracy in the most fundamental sense. The best player plays. When that principle gets overridden by organizational politics and financial optics, it poisons the competitive integrity of everything inside the building. Sanders earned his opportunities. He earned more than he got. And the people who made the decision to throttle his development did so for reasons that had nothing to do with football and everything to do with protecting their own positions. The Cleveland Browns have an opportunity right now to stop running the exit strategy and start making genuine football decisions. Commit to Watson with real support and a real plan, or commit to Sanders with the same energy the organization was supposed to commit to Watson 2 years ago. What they cannot keep doing is running both simultaneously, using one against the other in a political calculation, and expecting the locker room, the players, the city of Cleveland, and the rest of the NFL to accept the chaos that produces as a legitimate competitive process. The season is about to begin. The preseason game against the Bears is the first real data point. And based on every single piece of evidence we have examined today, from the press conference audio to the practice rep politics to the Switzer override to the organizational incentive structure, The Browns are not heading into that game with a clear plan and unified leadership. They are heading in with a script they have already written and a quarterback who is trying to find himself in an environment that is not built to help him do it. That is the real Cleveland Browns story of this season. And here at Gridiron Ground, we will be watching every single development as it unfolds. Because the full story is not over, it is just getting started. Here is what we know for certain after today. The Cleveland Browns have not built a quarterback competition. They have built a controlled demolition with a predetermined outcome, dressed in the language of meritocracy and competition, while every structural decision points in a direction the organization had already chosen. Watson told the world what he is going through. The coaching staff told the world it cannot maintain a unified command structure on basic personnel decisions. The organizational incentive structure told the world that reputational protection is currently outranking genuine football evaluation in that building. What we do not know yet is exactly how fast it unravels, and whether any of the people in positions of authority inside that organization have the self-awareness to change course before the regular season damage becomes irreversible. Shedeur Sanders is a variable the Browns cannot fully control. Genuine talent has a way of forcing its way into the conversation regardless of the political environment around it. And Watson, despite everything, still has the physical tools and the football intelligence of an elite quarterback if the right conditions emerge. But conditions do not emerge on their own. Organizations build them. And right now, the Cleveland Browns organization is building conditions that serve its own narrative more than they serve any of the players caught inside it. Drop your one-word comment below. Just one word. That is all. And if Gridiron Ground gave you the angle the mainstream NFL world would not, you already know what to do. We will see you in the next one.
I don't know. I think just going out there and just playing free and let my